Nuggets News. Today we welcome a very special guest to the channel to discuss everything happening in India in the world of crypto. And that's Nischal, the CEO and founder of WazirX India. And you've recently been acquired by Binance as well. But for those that haven't followed you, you've got a super interesting background. Forbes 30 under 30, and I know you did some stuff in growth hacking. So what's your background and what led you to crypto?
Yeah, so I started as a software engineer with my career and worked for a couple of years before I started my first startup, which actually started as a side project. This was in the early days of Twitter, I would say. Twitter was still pretty new, and they had just opened up their platform for API developers. And I thought, I wanted to grow on Twitter. Like back in the day, I think even now, everyone wants a lot of followers. So I said, what's the best way to reach a large audience? And I realized that I could automate a few things that would put me in front of more people on Twitter. And I built it for myself. Surprisingly, a lot more people want it. And by a lot more, I mean to say over 20 million users now on the product who wanted to grow on Twitter. So it seemed like a natural fit. And, the product organically started growing. After about a year of working on it during the weekends, I eventually had to quit. So it was never my plan to quit, but the number of people using it and the amount of money that the product started making, it was paying at one point. It was paying me more in a month than my day job was paying me in a year. Yeah. So that was the situation, and I quit my job, and I continued building that product. I raised some venture capital for that, about $2.5 million. We grew the team, we grew the product more, but a point came where the social media networks on which this product was built, they started removing access to some of the APIs that provided growth to people.
Yes.
So now the product is more of a social media management product. It does not help you grow as such, but it helps you manage all your social networks at a single place.
Yes.
So that's working. But because this happened, one of the key things that happened with me was the only reason why these social networks could do this is because of the fact that they control everything, the APIs, the ecosystem. And that's when I came across this whole decentralization, where I realized even if you are the creator of something, you do not have control over what the ecosystem can do with your product.
Yeah.
I think that was that moment which led me into crypto eventually.
Fantastic. And what's the name of that product for people that are interested?
It's called Crowdfire. It's on on the App Store, Play Store, on the web, CROWDFIRE, and you can still use it for a lot more social media features. It's got a ton of users using it even today. Thanks. I have a different team that's managing it because I'm now on WazirX. But yeah.
For sure. So I know you've mentioned that you were right into tech and experimenting with the latest things, and I think you got into crypto very early on and did some mining and whatnot. And you've got an interesting story with an old laptop you had.
Yeah, so it was a desktop, and if I had a laptop, I would not. So this was the time when the world was transitioning from having a desktop to a laptop.
Yeah.
And I happened, and this was I think late 2009 when as a techie, you usually just end up being on all online forums and keep reading about the new stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when I came across this whole Bitcoin, and I heard that you could mine it. So I wanted to test it out. I remember putting my computer overnight for mining. I don't remember how much it was, I could mine that time. But eventually I ended up selling that desktop for a new laptop. And, a few years down the line when I read about Bitcoin, I was like, oh shit, I should have kept that desktop with me. Yeah. So I don't know how much I lost. I'm not sad about it. But yeah, that was my, first, I would say, encounter with Bitcoin. And then the second encounter happened in 2012 or 2013 when a lot of these, I would say, wallet apps started coming online. Before that, you had to do a lot of stuff on your own. There was no, like a third-party, easy-to-use apps or websites.
Yes.
So in 2012, 2013, you started hearing a lot about companies actually building wallets for the Bitcoin world. Yeah. And that's when I started, trying it out again. And while I liked it, but I think I was so engrossed in my existing product that, it was just more of a touch and go for me.
Yeah. So I was going to say,
yeah.
to give people some context, there would have been maybe less than 100 people in the world mining Bitcoin back then. So chances are you probably mined a few blocks and there's probably a few hundred Bitcoin, but we hadn't even had the Bitcoin pizza day yet, so they probably didn't have any value back then.
Yeah, I mean, so it was, it was more of a, you could do something like this, let's try it out.
Yeah.
There was nothing beyond it, and you could mine it on a desktop. That was the beauty of it. You can't do that today.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't be able to mine a block. But when you come across stuff, you just try it out. You never know what happens.
For sure. Now, I know you're saying that it was pretty hard to buy crypto in India, even in 2013. And I know in Australia, I couldn't find anywhere to buy it in 2012 when I first read about it. So what is the history of crypto in India and that regulation now where it currently stands? Because I know there's probably three different pieces of the puzzle, isn't there? What the central bank wants, what the government want, and what regulators want. And that's for all countries.
Yeah, see, I think the history of crypto in India, if you were to look at it, I think it more or less started gaining ground around 2013 or 2014, when a couple of the first few exchanges in the country started cropping up. And they were not really exchanges, they were more of, I would say, the whole broker model where they would sell the Bitcoins to people, they would buy the Bitcoins from them, have a spread in between, and they benefited from that.
Yeah.
So I think exchanges cropped up in India only in 2017, like the true open order book exchanges. They cropped up only in the 2017 bull run. Before that, you had these products that would just buy from probably outside the country and source that and sell it to you.
Yeah.
And if you sold it to them, they would charge, like, they would pay you less than 80% or 70% of the market value. They would just get it cheap from you. So that's how this whole thing functioned for a long time in India. But 2017 is when I think everyone started building products for specific for this country.
Yep.
And that's when we also decided to build it. We eventually launched in 2018 March.
Yep.
But I think now the ecosystem's matured out. A few players, not many in the ecosystem, but it's now, I would say, the products are on par with global products.
Yeah.
Today.
And so you mentioned the brokers that take a bit of a fee either side as well. Was there a local Bitcoins, and was that very big in India the last few years?
I think local Bitcoins, I think the last couple of years, yes. But before that, we had, one of the products that, early products that existed in India was ZepPay, which, eventually they exited India, but they were one of the, early movers in the space where they started with that whole, buy and sell broker kind of a model.
Yeah.
Eventually, they too went to the open order book, but they were one of the, I would say, the early players in the ecosystem to, be there.
Yeah, I've had ZepPay on the channel. Again, that was another fantastic interview, and they were one of the companies that did leave India. So I know you've got some thoughts around the proposed bill, and how it currently stands with the regulation as straight order book exchange versus maybe the peer-to-peer and just coordinating sales of crypto.
Yeah, see, for your audience and for whoever does not understand what's happening in India, we could lay it down for them. So until 2017, Indian government or Indian banks never had a problem with crypto. That's because it was all under the radar. Nobody cared about it.
Yeah.
The 2017 bull run is where I think it's not just India but globally everyone started taking notice of what is Bitcoin. I think that $20,000 mark was like the wake up call for all the regulators, all the authorities everywhere, especially in India.
Yeah.
So when this happened, a couple of things started happening in India. First was that in December, I think around November or December 2017, our government set up a committee comprising of a few bureaucrats who were supposed to come up with the next I would say direction for crypto in India. And that committee eventually came up with the whole draft bill which wants a ban on crypto in 2019, I think this year. After 2 years of the committee being formed, they came up with a draft suggestion. But before these guys could come up with something, the Central Bank of India, they came up with a circular that said that none of the banks in India should deal with any crypto-related activity. There, the targets were all these exchanges, including us, where all our bank accounts were supposed to be shut down after 3 months of this circular coming out. And that's where I think the first major impact for the crypto ecosystem in India happened, because now all the exchanges had to close their bank accounts. Some of the exchanges decided not to do anything about it. Like, they probably they thought that this would go away, but it's been over a year and a half now. The circular hasn't changed. You still can't get a bank account as an exchange in India. What we did as WazirX is we realized that we'll have to adapt to these changing circumstances. Because if you look at crypto regulations globally, the funny part is everyone wants to talk about it, nobody wants to solve it. It's not a solved problem today, everyone's just discussing. So we knew that this is going to take a long time. Let's find a solution. And that's where the whole peer-to-peer system was built by WazirX for the first time in India. And people loved it because we built it very differently from your traditional local Bitcoin. If you look at local Bitcoin, it's a new way of buying and selling, because that's the listing. You have to go through each of the buyers and sellers. You have to take the decision yourself: who's a good buyer, who's a fraud, who's a bad person. But on our exchange, you do not have to do any of these. You just have to fill your buy or sell form, and we automatically match you with the best price. And you just have to make your fund transfer to the seller's bank account. That's all. So there's no listing, there's no going through what's right for you. And that people loved it, because it was the same experience as trading on a traditional exchange. The same order book. If you see it, so by the way, till you do not place that buy order, you will not realize it's P2P. You will think that it's just a crypto to crypto kind of a trading experience. So that was amazing. And people loved it, and that made us go viral in India. And so while this banking thing was happening, and while we found a solution, the committee that was set up in 2017 came up with the bill in 2019. Now this is just a proposal, okay? And it's not by the government, it's by an independent committee set up by the government. So it's not like our government speaks about that bill, that it's coming up with it. This is just a suggestion by the committee that this is how it should be done. I don't know if you've read the bill, but the unfortunate thing about the bill is it's more superficial at the surface level. It does not talk about, for example, it just thinks of crypto as a currency. So that's the only goal. This is a currency. We have our own currency, INR. This is a competitor, and it should be banned. So that's the premise. It does not talk about crypto as a security, as a utility, or anything apart from currency. It's like they've literally taken the whole term cryptocurrency and they said, this is bad for the country. But I think it's still a step in the right direction, because now we can at least have a dialogue with the government. Before this, even this proposal came in, we had nothing from anywhere, no authority which speaks about anything related to crypto. So while it looks dangerous, this bill, because it also suggests a 10-year jail term if you hold crypto, if it comes into effect, which will be, I think, 5 million people will have to be jailed eventually if this bill comes into effect. So I don't think this is going to happen. But I think it's at least a starting point for us in India. We can at least start to talk about it.
I think that's an issue for people that are getting into the space as well, just the terminology, as you say, cryptocurrency versus digital assets. And an Australian company like Power Ledger has got lots of trials going on in India. So they've got a cryptocurrency, and does that mean that...
Registration verification email from WazirX. Click on it to verify your registration. Log into your newly created WazirX account. The next step is to complete the KYC. Start by adding your bank account details. This is where you will also receive money when you decide to sell your Bitcoin. You need to add your bank account, UPI, and if you like, you can also add Paytm account details. The bank account should belong to the same person/organization operating this WazirX account. You may only add one bank account. Click on Next. In the next step, you need to update your documents for the KYC. Here are the documents that are required. Copy of PAN card, your photo, address proof, Aadhaar card showing address or driving license or passport page showing address. Passport page/Aadhaar card showing photo. In my case, I used my passport plus my PAN card to verify my account. This KYC verification